In June, the Town Council of Taos voted to change the name of Kit Carson Park to Red Willow Park. The decision was praised by Native Americans and activists, but some historians and residents quickly criticized the vote. The council has since rescinded the decision in part and has formed a committee to work on the issue. The debate centered around whether Carson's complex life as a friend to some tribes, as well as a soldier and explorer, should be eclipsed by his scorched earth campaign against the Navajos. But the activists who first approached City Council say this is not about Kit Carson. Lila June Johnston, a founder of the Taos Peace and Reconciliation Council, says her group wants to liberate everyone in Taos from the lingering effects of the town's violent past.
Lila June Johnston, thank you for joining us on New Mexico in Focus. So I just want to talk about you for a minute. Sure. Talk about your relationship to Taos, your background with Taos.
Well, I grew up there. I'm Navajo, and I'm also Scandinavian, and I'm also Cheyenne, so I have a mixed heritage. And I lived in Taos, which is also very mixed. And so I also went to school at the Taos Pueblo BIA school, Bureau of Indian Affairs school, and just got to know the town very intimately over the years. And I love Taos. It's my home, it's my community, and I've really grown a lot there. And the greatest thing Taos offered me really was, as a young person, really cradling my creative side. And so I wrote a lot of poetry in Taos, and that's what ended up getting me into college and all these things. So it's a very creative place, and it really nurtured me when I needed it. There was definitely some difficult times, but that's kind of my history there, and I very much love every single person, regardless of their heritage, very much.
And you were one of the founding members of something that's called the Taos Peace and Reconciliation Council. Can you talk a little bit about what that group is, who's in it, its mission?
Sure. Well, in today's world where we all have this mixed blood, we find ourselves the descendants of groups that were warring at times. And so you have Taos Plaza, where they would hang Native Americans, and then you have various officials from the U.S. government who were murdered in Taos. You have a lot of violence on the Pueblo people, not only from Spanish conquistador movements, but also the U.S. government and also the Navajo. So my lineage. And so you have a lot of violence occurring in the history of Taos. It wasn't always that way. For a long time there was harmony there. But we find ourselves, all sitting in this town, and we really just wanted to heal from all of that and say, you know what, our ancestors did this. Our ancestors killed each other. Our ancestors hung each other. Our ancestors put each other in concentration camps. But you know what, we want to come together as one. So the Taos Peace and Reconciliation Council was made up of a Navajo woman, myself, a Pueblo woman, a Pueblo man, Taos Pueblo that is, a Hispanic person, and also a Chicano person. I guess there's a distinction between the two, and also a Euro-American man. So we really wanted to make it a cohesive, unifying presence of all the different heritages in the area. And so it was really about beginning again in peace and beauty together as one.
And we know this violent history, but there's still a lot of things simmering in Taos that are very contemporary or very much today. Is that what you wanted to address?
Yeah, we wanted to take a look at some of the things that were like residual institutions of segregation, things that we're still living with today, not because we want to, but because it's kind of a continuation of an ancient structure. So for instance, the Pueblo kids who go to the high school, they aren't comfortable there. So they create a small pact, and you'll see it. You walk out of the main doors of the high school, and all the Pueblo kids are together because they have nowhere else to go. They need that support group, and they don't really branch out. And there's lots of reasons for that. And really giving them a place in the high school and helping them ease into it in a way that's not so shocking and abrasive. And so that's one of our projects. The other project, which everyone knows about now, was the desire to find a name for our Central Park that invokes a sense of unity amongst the community members instead of a deep division. And the controversy that has sprung out of our proposal to change the name of the park is kind of indicative of how divisive that name is in our town. And we wanted a name that really brought people together instead of had them explode apart.
As you say, the town council decided in June to rename Kit Carson Park. Then they rescinded that in a very emotional 3-hour hearing in July. So part of the park right now, where Kit Carson is buried, will still be called Kit Carson Park. But the plan is to have a committee to look at options for renaming the other parts of the park. Why focus on Kit Carson in particular?
Well, we're actually trying to not focus on Kit Carson. I am Navajo. 8,000 of my ancestors were put in a concentration camp where they stayed for 4 years. Many of them starved to death. And after 4 years, they were released back into the sea of sand and given sheep and goats and taught to live in an American way. And that's painful, but I forgive. I forgive the U.S. government. I forgive Kit Carson. I know his role in that was very complex, and it's not even that he was, signing off on the papers for that to happen. It's just that he became a symbol of that. And so I've forgiven Kit Carson, I've forgiven everyone, but we want to at least not have that be the centerpiece of our town. He was very involved in the Fort Sumner concentration camps, sometimes defending, sometimes saying pretty outrageous things like the only way that I speak to Navajos is through the barrel of my gun, and things like that. And so it's very mixed, very complex history, which makes it hard to talk about these things. But really, it's about not focusing on Kit Carson, which is why this Pueblo woman and I originally proposed to name the park Peace and Reconciliation Park. Then it went to Red Willow, which caused all kinds of...
Why was Red Willow controversial? Why was it meaningful, but then why did the town council say, okay, we're not going to name it Red Willow for now?
I heard several things. One is certain people from the Pueblo didn't want their name appropriated for something that wasn't theirs. Fair enough. And I think the other part is we're still choosing a side. It's kind of like American frontierman Kit Carson, or natural, I guess, Native American earth-based culture. And even though a lot of us prefer this earth-based culture, we're still kind of pitting against the other side. And so whenever we choose a side, it's not going to work out. We need to come together as one.
So is it fair to judge the past and people like Carson from the point of view of today with our expectations of what should be right behavior?
Absolutely not. Because, from my perspective, because for any man to point a gun at another man and pull the trigger, the person pulling the trigger is getting harmed more deeply than the person being shot. If you are in a stage of life where you believe that's your only option is to kill someone, that's a very difficult place to be. And the only way that people are brought to that moment is through severe trauma in their own life. And I imagine that, I don't know him, but I imagine that Colonel Carson had a very difficult life, and that he came to a point where that was his his orders, his commands, and he believed that that was all he had left. And so I don't think that we can judge anyone, especially those who are brought to such an extreme point in life where they think they have to kill someone. That's not fun for anyone all the way around. Whatever side of the gun you're on, you're suffering. And so I really think it's important to forgive and also to acknowledge that the people who are shooting are hurting a lot more than, well, not a lot more, but equally, if not more, as the people getting shot. And so I don't judge personally, and I wasn't there, so I can't.
You know, some people have said that, not just in this story, but just pick any kind of historical trauma in our country and other countries, slavery, other issues, and there's sort of an attitude of like, look, it's past, we can't do anything about it, let's just move on. Why do you want to reopen old wounds? Mm-hmm. Talk about why it's important, in your point of view, to go through that painful process before you can move on.
Megan, I think that's an excellent question, because here we are today, and we could just pretend like the genocide of Native American people never happened. But what I'm finding is people don't want to do that. And not just Native Americans. The majority of people who came to the council room during the debate on whether or not we should change it, they were Euro-American. They wanted something different. They wanted reconciliation of the past. And so what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are wanting to come together to acknowledge the atrocities so that we can move on. If we do not acknowledge the atrocities and pretend like nothing happened, that's not really moving on. That's ignoring the truth. And so a lot of the medicine people in my culture, they say, you must feel the pain before you let it go. Feeling the pain and letting it go are both very important steps. You can't just feel the pain and feel the pain for years and years and years. You have to let it go. Mm-hmm. But you can't let it go before you feel it. And so addressing the atrocities, it liberates everyone, because the Native people are heard. That's all they want. We just want to be heard. We've been in the margins for 500 years. We just want someone somewhere to acknowledge what has happened. And then on the other side, the Euro-Americans, the majority, I would say, want reconciliation. They want to be liberated from their ancestral shame, etc. And so really this movement to rename the park, from our perspective, was to liberate each side in a beautiful coming together of reconciliation. That was our hope.
How's it going?
You know,
I don't mean to be flippant. How do you, really, how do you think it's playing out?
I think we've already won. And when I say we, I don't mean the Native Americans. I mean we as in humanity. We've already won.
Why do you say that?
Because we've had this discussion. Mm-hmm. And that is an incredible thing for us to have the courage to look at this and forgive each other and forgive ourselves. The other reason I think we've already won is because the governor of Taos Pueblo said, we see this as a great offering of reconciliation, and we thank you. And he invited, the few members of the Pueblo invited the mayor to the powwow. The mayor and various others invited the Pueblo to the fiestas. And that in and of itself, that's winning. That's people of different cultures coming together and saying, let's be one again the way we were.
There seems to be, as you say, a lot of people who are open to this idea that renaming and talking about the dominant culture, they're frustrated with how the process took place. And I don't know if that's now this idea with the committee is a way to make the process more inclusive. But I saw a lot of frustration with people like, you just made this decision, you didn't get any input.
Yeah.
And it seemed to short circuit what could have been a more fruitful conversation early on.
Absolutely. I mean, I hate to say I told you so to the mayor, but I did tell him so. I said, we should put this to vote. And he said, Oh no, I can't say what he said because one point I heard it's not legally feasible to put this to vote, but
Okay.
then I heard we just want to get it done. I'm not sure, but I said if we allow the citizens of Taos, New Mexico to vote on this and it goes through, which I'm 99% sure it would have, then we could all own this as a decision that we made together, and we would be all the more liberated because we did this. And I think that's a very valid concern. And I think this committee is meant to address that concern by having a greater discussion. And yeah, the council jumped the gun, in my opinion. And I think that we're trying to clean up that mess now. And my prayer is just that it continues to go forward and it's not ignored or tabled indefinitely. So I think we're getting it. You know, it's taken us a few tries, but we're getting it.
I mean, do you think that kind of discussion now will happen in the way you want it to happen, even though this has stirred up a lot of anger among some people over Kit Carson or over the way it was done?
I mean, there already has been a lot of very difficult words flung back and forth, but more than that, there has been a lot of incredibly healing words. And the delegation that came to the town council meeting, we were all very clear that we were going to be nonviolent in terms of our speech, that we were here to honor everyone's perspective, and we were here to bring about our perspective, and in a way that was firm but also loving. And in no way was our delegation wanting to say mean things about Kit Carson or anything. We were there to acknowledge the truth in a loving way and in the most gentle way we possibly could.
Can you overcome history, and is that something you would want to do with this process?
So I don't think history is something to be overcome. I think history can be a blessing, because without the experiences we've had, we would not have learned the things we know today. And so to me, it's not about defeating history, it's about honoring history and honoring ourselves at the very spearhead of that historical trajectory. Here we are, and we are able to learn from the not only the mistakes of our ancestors, but the things our ancestors did well. And so really treating these brutal wounds as a blessing and saying, wow, not going to do that again, which we haven't, you know, and not too long ago, slavery was completely acceptable. And now it's completely deplorable. And so we figure out, and it always will be, at least for the foreseeable future. And so we are learning what not to do. And so I think there's absolutely a way to overcome history in the sense that we can turn it into medicine. And I don't mean like ibuprofen or anything like that. I mean a gift and a blessing that we can use to heal ourselves and give our children a better life than we had.
So what is next for the Peace and Reconciliation Council? I know you work in California now, but you come back here a lot. Obviously, you're keeping in contact with Taos.
Right. I think our next steps are to ensure that the conversation doesn't end and to really hold the council accountable, because there was
The city council.
Yeah, the city council. Because there was a 4-0 vote to change the name of the park. During that, when they rescinded the decision, they had a re-vote and they said, well, do we want to change the park? 4 out of 4 said yes. What do we want to change it to? 3 said not Red Willow, 1 said Red Willow. So it's not that we're not going to change the park, we just don't know what the name will be, apparently. And so that's the next step of the Peace and Reconciliation Council, is just ensuring that the city council doesn't just kind of let it go to the wayside. And then after that, we'd like to work on various segregation issues in Taos and bringing people together in a way that is real.
And racial tension?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot about racial tension.
Yeah. And that goes across many different ways, right? You are of mixed race. You said you've experienced this yourself.
Oh yeah, and I tell people my dad was a cowboy and my mom was an Indian, and so I'm this hybrid of, you know. And Kit Carson had a Navajo wife, and you know, I'm like their child, and it's kind of like, okay, well, what do we do? Well, how do I reconcile these two warring parts of me? And all my life, I wanted each of my ancestral lineages to see that they're beautiful, and that they are sacred. And so that's really the point, is just noticing that we all bleed red, we all need to drink water, we all need to breathe, and race does not define you. As Martin Luther King said, we should not judge each other by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And really doing that in our town.
Well, Lila, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I don't think we've heard these perspectives a lot, so I appreciate you going into them.
Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate you taking the time to let a voice like mine have a seat at the table. So
Thank you
you
so much.
Thank you.